Hello, everyone. In today's video, I would like to discuss with you about financial astrology, and both to share some techniques and approaches, and at the same time to illustrate that astrology can be very practically helpful and help complete the deal, even in a turbulent or uncertain market. And so, in this case, my clients were two real estate agents who were getting ready to sell a condominium in a pretty slow market. In this very particular complex where they were selling, condominiums were sitting on the market for months without the sale. And so they approached me with a Horary question first: will they be able to sell it? And they were looking for some kind of tips on how to do it so they could be successful. So I looked at the Horary chart first, and then I created an electional chart for when they were ready to go on the market in order to help the sales. So let's analyze both. First, the Horary chart. When they approached me, Libra was rising, and they are shown by Venus in Gemini. That's really appropriate because there are two women, and Venus in Gemini is peregrine, which suggests they weren't really certain where to go or how to approach it, in spite of being experienced. Venus is with Uranus. I normally don't pay attention to Uranus that much, but it does suggest here that they are looking for something unusual, out of the box solutions. The potential buyers would be shown by the seventh house, and we see that Aries is here, and Mars, ruler of the Aries, is in Virgo. That's also a peregrine position, which suggests the potential buyers, though handy, like someone who perhaps wants to remodel or flip, also didn't quite know what they're looking for, but they were hoping for a good deal. For the buyers, Mars would be in the fifth house, which suggests an investment, right? Speculation. We can see the condominium, we assign it to the fourth house, and we see that Saturn represents it. Saturn is in debilitated state in Aries. It's in the Cadent house, and it's conjoined Neptune. So the condominium was rather old, even though my clients have told me that it was painted. It did have some structural problems and various problems, but it was openly and honestly disclosed. So the apartment wasn't amazing, but it could appeal to people who want to flip. And in order to make a prediction whether the sale will occur, we want to find an applying aspect or some other connection in the Horary chart which would promise a deal. Here we find that Venus is moving to a square of Mars, but first of all, it's a little out of orb, and it's not a very strong aspect without the reception. So it doesn't really give an affirmative yes. At the same time, the moon is applying to a sextile of Mars. I got concerned that the moon was in Scorpio because in traditional astrology, the moon being in debilitated state is negative. At the very least, it promised that my clients will worry a lot. There will be a lot of emotional ups and downs before they will be satisfied, before they will be happy. However, the moon is applying to Mars, and it is applying by a sextile with reception. Here, Mars receives the moon. In other words, my clients, represented by the moon, are wishing to sell, wishing to be rid of this condominium, and the potential buyer is receptive to it. So that was a very positive connection, especially reception helped, and it made me certain that they will sell. And it was okay that Venus is also applying to square of Mars. So the contact with the potential buyer was visible in the chart. And one last piece which convinced me that the sale will occur, and relatively soon, is the moon trining Jupiter in Cancer. That's a very strong position, which suggests that the profit will be made. Jupiter also rules the fifth house, which is profit from the apartment or the speculation on the apartment. We do want to notice that Jupiter is under the sunbeam, so it diminishes the Jupiterian energy a little bit. Nevertheless, there are positive connections between the moon, Jupiter, and Mars representing the buyer. So I was certain they would sell. One last piece, as a side note, we can consider the part of fortune, because in the financial astrology, they are very important. And part of fortune here is in the fourth house, disposited by Saturn. So we can expect that they will get some profit from this deal, but perhaps not as huge, not as much as they hope, because Saturn, ruler of the part of fortune, is cadent and in debilitated state. And if we want to look at the price, how much money will we get? The 10th house shows the price, and moon here is in Scorpio, also suggesting a lowering of the price because the moon is in debilitated zodiacal state. So literally that may show price is lower than originally anticipated and hoped for. And so, in any case, I told them that I'm sure they will sell. And then we started preparing for the sales. Here is the election that we've settled on. And you will see that, interestingly, and as it often happens synchronistically, it repeats the Horary chart. Again, we have Libra rising, and my clients are shown by Venus in Gemini in the ninth house, and the potential buyer is shown by the seventh house. Mars rules the seventh house, so it's by Mars. So it's a repeat of the Horary question. According to William Lilly, if Horary question is promising, what we can do in the election, we simply improve the Horary, whatever is difficult in the Horary question, we improve it in the election. And so that's what I did here. We improved the moon. The moon is in Sagittarius, and the reason I've chosen the moon in Sagittarius is because it's in mutual reception with Jupiter. We place the sun on MC and Jupiter on MC, which makes publicity attractiveness of this condo increase. And the moon was moving to a square of Mars. Square between Venus and Mars and moon and Mars are not that amazing, but it's exceptionally helpful that the moon was in mutual reception with Jupiter. If we look at the part of fortune in this chart, it is disposited by Jupiter, which increases the profits or the sales. And so that's the chart they went on the market with. But it's not without some difficulties. First of all, there are square aspects between the planets, and mutual reception is an aspect that often plays unexpectedly. So for the next few weeks, my clients didn't get any interest, or so they thought, and they were asking me, maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, they were asking me, is there any hope that they will sell the apartment? But the original Horary chart was showing 5 units of time for the connection between the buyer and the seller. And so I told them about 5 weeks. And almost at the mark of 5 weeks, they got an offer. It was from a family who really liked this apartment and wanted it. These are not very strong positions for Venus or Mars, but what we capitalize in this election is in the connection between the moon and Jupiter, and Sun and Jupiter attracting publicity and also a better price for the condo. If we look at the condo itself, it is the same, Saturn and Neptune. It has problems, it has difficulties, but my clients were honest, all of the difficulties were disclosed. Final consideration here is that part of fortune, always very important in the financial charts, was in the fifth house associated with speculations, and it was disposited by a beautiful Jupiter in Cancer. They could expect some profit, albeit smaller than anticipated, because Jupiter was under the sunbeams, which diminishes its power, and there were a kind of weak aspect between buyer and the seller. It's a square with no major receptions. It took a while to complete the deal. Just recently, the sale has closed. As to the price, it was below the original asking price, but both my clients and the owner of the condo are quite satisfied. All other condos in the same complex are still for sale months and months later. So this is a good example of how Horary and Electional Astrology have helped to complete this deal. If you have any comments, any questions, please leave your comment below. I also very much appreciate the growing support for my young channel. If you are new, hit the subscribe button, support my work, and stay tuned for more. Thank you.